Welcome to Brick Short Scale Modelling. For my next build, I'm building this Airfix North American Mustang 1 to 24 scale. Now, as you can see by the box, it's going to be a big kit. I've already primed this, so let's see what's inside. So first of all, we have the instructions. So again, it's on the 124 series, and it's an older kit, so the instructions are in the older style. So as you can see here, they're clearly marked out. There's two variants for to have a look at. There's North American, one for France, which is all aluminium, which that's the variant I'm going to be doing. Or you have your standard British variant here. So as I said, I'll do the aluminium one. The decal sheet is quite large, as you expect for a kit this size. So you have the standard military version, and you have the variant for the French, which will be a surveillance aircraft as well. The common decals here. So the sprues ourselves, they're in an okay condition. Could have been better. Yet again, there's parts falling off the sprue tray, which is annoying. That seems to be a common feature on Airfix, unfortunately. So you have the weapon system, the flaps for the wings, and instrument panel. You have the one half the fuselage, more weapons, and the engine block here. And the next part of the fuselage, and same again with the weapons, engine block. You have the props. Now there's looks like there's two options for the props. I don't know which will fit into which, so I'll have a look at that. The wings. Now on the face of, they're nicely moulded. The panel lines look really nice. And the next set of wings. It does come with a pilot, which I won't be using. I don't like these pilots that come in halves. I can never get rid of the seam lines properly, which is really annoying, so I don't use them now. But it's nicely moulded. It's not for me. We have clear parts, so we have part of the canopy and instrument panel, and another part of the canopy. And because it's a large kit, Airfix also include a stand, which is really nice. That is one nice thing about these kits, they do come with a stand. So I'll get all this looked at, and I'll look in detail at the instructions, and we'll crack on with the build. So to begin with, I'm using Rebel Aquacolor 15 yellow, and this is for the tips of the props, and I'm just giving it a thin coat before I mark it off to be the black on. Now I'm moving on to the engine block, and the predominant colour is 08 Matte Black by Rebel Aquacolor, and as you can see, once again I'm painting it on the sprue, so I'm just putting in all the base colours at the moment. My next colour is Rebel Aquacolor 90 Silver, and these are just for all the little bits and pieces that are going to be attached, well, some of them, which are going to be attached to the engine block. And another colour I'll be adding is 85 Brown by Rebel Aquacolor. This is just a small part that attaches to the side of the engine block. Next up is UA732 Black and Rubber Vulcanized, and these are from Live Colour, and I'm using this colour to paint all the pipes that go throughout the engine block. Should apologise for the headphones there. I didn't realise they were on my desk while I was building. I generally have them on listening to whatever. I'm now using Tamiya's X32 Titanium Silver, and what I'm doing here is I use this colour just to highlight metal parts. This paint can be really thin, which is good for highlighting, so when I'm brushing it on, it just goes on a bit watery as such, but it leaves a used sort of metal look behind it once it dries. So it's really good for touching up silvers and blacks that have mechanical moving parts. the effect you get, it's almost like it's leaving an oil greasy stain on the actual unit that you paint. There's a few components that have got to go together before you actually build the main block itself. How I approached this was I just took each section of the instructions, cut them from the sprue, placed them in a line and built them individually. That way I had them already in line before attaching them to the main block. So I'm just fast forwarding this slightly because it's just a little parts going together. There's no drama here. Very simple. They just each part marries up to each half. Just be aware of the instructions, so try and do them in order before you put them on, or you may run into little problems. You know, but before the instructions, you shouldn't have too much of a problem. So that's the two main parts going together now. Look at your contact point. It should be self-explanatory how it goes, but if you're not sure where a part goes, refer to the instructions later on down the line and you'll see more detailed pictures on the instructions, and that way you can see where the part is meant to be, because sometimes on each stage the instructions may not be 100% clear. This part here was suggested to be painted in black or a gunmetal colour. I didn't like that, so I painted it in silver and used the titanium to highlight it. I'm not sure whether this is correct or not, but I think it looked better. So once you've got the initial block built up and the first little components going on, just take your time, have a look to make sure you're happy with it before you carry on. Onto the exhaust ports now, and the outer casings here, I'm painting them in Tamiya's X10 gunmetal, and that'll be all the components for the outer casings. There's actually 3 components of the outer casings to be painted. Then I'm using Tamiya's XF64 red brown to paint the actual exhaust themselves. As you can see there, I'm not using any finesse when I'm painting these. I want them to be rough and ready, pitted as such, so they'll look like a well used part. While that's all drying, I'm using Mr. Hobby 28 metallic metal black, and this is for the front part of the engine, the part that connects the prop. If you're worried about using different brands of paint on top of each other and so forth, I found that they do mix alright as long as you leave them to dry 100%. Let the paint harden before you put on a different brand of paint. That way you won't have any reactions. So I'm using the same colour here for the blades of the prop, the metal black. And have you noticed that I've taped off the tip of the blade of the prop to protect the yellow? And the key is to paint down from the tip so you're not brushing up onto the tip to get light blade. Sorry, I mean paint blade. So onto the actual nose cone, and this is getting painted in Rebel Aquacolor 90 Silver, and it'll be the same for the collar at the bottom there that you can see inside my tweezers. I've just placed it in there so it's easier to handle. Now, again, depending on what variant you're doing, it'll be depending on what colour you're painting these. I'm painting it this in the B variant, the French reconnaissance colours. So it's going to be all aluminium apart from a flash of green at the top. So as I said, the colour is getting painted in the same colour. It's back to the engines, and I'm using Tamiya's Weathering Master Series D, and I'm using the burnt blue component here, and this is for the exhaust. So I'm just applying this using my brush sharpener, putting it on not necessarily even, but enough to dull down the reddish brown colour to make it look like it's had hot, the metal's been heated up. So again, while that's off to dry and settling, it's back to building more components for the engine block. So I'm painting on the top rocket colours, and they're painted in the H28 metallic metal black by Mr. Hobby. Be careful to line these up properly because other parts do go on against it. You need to get these lined up for everything to fit. So this is the top part of the hose system and coolant system going on. I'm now connecting the pipe, so you'll need a pair of tweezers for this. Make sure your parts are dry before you pull and push these into position, but you shouldn't have too much of a problem. You may have to hold them for a little bit just for them to settle in. And now it's time to build the exhaust system onto the engine block. Now you can approach this two different ways. You can build it up, then lay it onto the engine block, or you can do what I'm doing here. I'm laying the separate components on first. I just thought that would be easier than trying to get the main unit on. These are quite difficult to attach. There's a lot of components onto the block at this stage, so you want to make sure you get them all lined up. They do fit, you just have to line them up properly. Make sure you're putting the actual exhaust through the housing, not on top of it. You'll see what it is when you're building this, but the push in, make sure you put them in before you put the next part on. So when you put on the collar like this, again this lays on top of the actual initial housing you put on before placing on the actual exhaust. So there it is. There is a couple of location points for this just to clip into. Again, make sure it's dry before you do this part, because if it's not, the main housing may slip off, and it can be a pain to put back on again. Next to go on is the prop drive wheel. That just clicks in the front. There's a little lip that it sits into. You shouldn't have any problem with that. So now I'm building up the prop, and there's just two halves to go in here. There's two little location points. The location studs are in a different size, so you can't get mixed up how they go, because they can only go in one way. But they should just click into position without any problem. And then that just gets placed into the collar here. Again, the props, you won't have any problems. They should just fit into the specified slots, and the nose goes on top. So it's self-explanatory here. You only need a little bit of cement for it all to fit. Now I did have a slight problem here. Where the shaft goes into the drive wheel, there's a little pin. Now this pin is meant to go into the engine block before you build it. I opted not to do that because I won't be actually attaching the pin, the shaft one, until the end. Unfortunately, the pin wasn't in the box, so I've had to scratch build it. So what I did was just take a little bit of plastic card, shaped it into a circle, just trimmed off the edges and filed it down into a rough sort of circle. Placed it on a cocktail stick, and then a bit of super glue inside the hole, as you see here. Then I pushed the cocktail stick into the actual shaft itself. I then trimmed it to length. The length, I just sort of guessed it really. I wasn't exactly sure of the length. And then I took the part that I cut to shape, also drilled a little hole in it for to be placed on. I'm just opening it up slightly. You don't want to do it too large and find that it's just slipping down. So just do it a little bit at a time if you have to do this, if your kit doesn't have it either. And then just place on. I think it's better doing this than waiting for ages to get a replacement part from Airfix. If it can't be scratch built, then you may as well. And then once it was on and dry, it's just a matter of checking it for fit, and it should just go into the drive wheel like so. And as you can see, I've just knocked off a part. That annoyed me slightly, but something I'll have to repair. So I'm having a little bit difficult here because it's still a little bit too large. So I'll go back and sort that out. So now I'm making up the cradle for the engine block to sit on. So, but first of all, there's this little semicircle collar thing that goes on front of the engine to hold. I think it's to hold the prop into place. Nevertheless, it's getting painted in H28 metallic black. It sits just above the drive wheel for the prop. And for the cradle, it's XF71 cockpit green. So this is part going on now. There's a couple of location points just at the top where the rocker cover sits, and it should just push on. The contact points are very small, so make sure it's completely dry before you carry on. So next is the cradle bracket here. There's a couple of pipes that get pushed in. It's up to you whether you put them in on at this stage or not. I did, but they were falling off because I wanted them to be unattached. So I knew that I was putting them in the right way when it comes to connect them all. So it's entirely up to the builder really how they want to approach it. This part does go on an angle, as you can see there. The actual main part of the cradle just pushes on to the top of the unit to sit, and the engine just sits on it. There's a location hole at the other end as well for the engine to click into, so you know you've got the correct position. And then it was just a case of using more titanium silver to go over the engine and highlighting areas that I wish to be highlighted, giving them that more metal, greasy, oily stain look. Well, this will bring part 1 to a close. It's a good place to start now that the engine block is built. In part 2, I'll do more start on the cockpit and see how far I get on with that. So in the meantime, why don't you check out the other videos on my channel, subscribe to that channel for any updates, particularly for this build. Hit that like button and of course leave a comment. But for now, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.